Before we dive in, a quick shout out to today's sponsors, Top Flight Gaming, your new go-to virtual card shop. They're a small independent seller on TCG Player, which means you're directly supporting a passionate, community-driven business. No storefront as of yet, just real people who care about the game. Whether you're chasing staples, looking to finish your brew, or just love seeing what's in stock, Top Flight Gaming's got your back. They've got competitive prices, fast shipping, and the kind of personal touch you just don't get from the big names. So if you want to support small creators while helping getting great cards, check them out on TCG Player. I'll drop the link down in the description. Thanks again to Top Flight Gaming for supporting the channel. Now, let's get into it. Hello, and welcome all to another episode of Tourney Timmys, your friendly neighborhood space for CEDH and tourney grinding. We're your hosts. I'm Kearns.
I'm Kay.
I'm Mark.
And I'm River.
And today we're going to go over a whole array of topics. First, we're going to pass it over to Kay.
One of the topics that I wanted to talk about, at least this episode, is playing from behind. And I've seen from a few different areas that I've been at, whether that be my locals or a couple other shops that are in the next cities over, or even playing in our Timmy Tourneys Discord server. I'm pretty sure everybody has their own many experiences being behind in a game and being in a situation where it doesn't make sense whenever somebody interacts with you. I think for me, it probably most often happens when I play Nugila, but I think it happens all the time whenever anybody plays any deck. Like, just giving an example, say one opponent has had a One Ring on the battlefield for 2 turn cycles, and like you're just now playing a Rhystic Study, and then somebody other than the One Ring player will all of a sudden throw a counter at your Rhystic Study, and you look over at the other player with the One Ring, and they've discarded down to hand size twice, and you're like, I have 3 cards in hand after casting this. Why throw any interaction my way? And so I think this would be a great opportunity to at least try to, one, speak to our immediate audience here in the Tourney Timmy server, but then also anybody else who's listening in on what you should be looking to do when you're in that situation. What do you guys think?
I think Kay is referencing me when it comes to countering a Rhystic Study. And I'm going to tell you why I do this sometimes, and it is wrong about 80% of the time. A lot of the decks that I play require casting a lot of spells. I can win through a One Ring on a turn 2, like with 2 burning counters on it. I cannot win through a Rhystic Study. So I'm like, oh, CEDH is trying to navigate through a very tight window at times, and I'm like, oh, I can win through the One Ring, but not the Rhystic Study. So I'm just going to counter it and try to go for some value win. I then get stopped by the One Ring player with 7 cards in hand, and then they win on their next turn. Who would have thought? But that's the mythology. Should you do this? No. Do I do it sometimes? Yes. Will I learn? To be continued.
That's a good way of putting it, yeah.
Well, that pretty much takes what I was going to say, because I was also in a game with Kurtz recently where this exact thing happened, but instead of a counter spell, it was a Force of Vigor. And I was like, I'm telling you right now, they're putting a win attempt on this stack in like 2 turn cycles, so unless you're winning the game when you untap, I need you to point that somewhere else. I have like 4 cards in hand. And that's exactly what happened. But realistically, I think that people in general need to get better at not always just like, oh, well, I can do this, so I'm going to. They need to like anticipate the game as many turns ahead as they can within reason. CDH is chess, not checkers. It's not, oh, I can put this Seedborn Muse on the field with no way to really abuse it, with like no Kinnan, no Thrasios, no One Ring, whatever, but I get all my mana untapped. Like, people are going to assume you're a threat. why would you play that when you can't protect it? You can't take advantage of it. Like, it's kind of the similar situation with removal, where like you're just wasting it when you could be saving it for a win attempt, or to stop somebody from getting so far ahead that nobody is going to keep up with them.
I don't know. I kind of feel like too many players play too active, where they, for instance, like I don't like the Seedborn Muse example there, because if I play a Seedborn Muse and I have nothing else going on, and you counter the Seedborn Muse when I'm just untapping mana, and yes, when I get back to my turn, I'm probably playing a Thrasios, or maybe I'm playing a Kinnan or whatever. If it's not an immediate threat at that moment, and it's also always dependent on like pod composition, but like there's usually something more important going to happen. For instance, there are some spells that like that don't follow the same logic. So an Underworld Breach is like almost never being used for value, and if it is, like, don't do that. Like, you shouldn't be value breaching.
Well,
Or Ad Nauseam, right? Or Peer into the Abyss, or Necropotence, or like there are plenty of cards that when they're put onto the stack, they beg you to interact with them, and you should interact with them. They aren't cards you need to be letting resolve. You will lose the game. But like Kay's example of, because this happened to me before too, where you have like two players who are super far ahead, and then you do a thing to try and get yourself back into the game. And then the other player, who's just as behind as you are, stops you from propelling yourself. And then you both do literally nothing, and then one of the other two players win. It is never on the player who is behind to police the table. And I have said this in tournaments before to players where I can interact with something, but I have 3 cards in hand, and somebody else has 15. I'm not protecting the player with 15 cards in hand. If we lose, we lose. I will tell people straight up, I don't interact with stuff unless I know it makes it back to my turn, or unless I know you're not winning the game. Because I'm not going to stop somebody's win attempt or do the prisoner's dilemma thing just to force a draw or do whatever. Like, I'm playing the game to my best advantage, and my best advantage is not to save the table. My best advantage is to save myself, and there are edge cases to that, but primarily, like, just because you can make a game action doesn't mean you have to make a game action. Like, I could counter. I've had this happen before with like Teferi. When I play Teferi a lot, I'll cast Teferi. Usually, when I'm casting Teferi, I am going to win the game, but my opponents have to be prepared to stop the win attempt and not my Teferi, because if you can stop my win attempt and I can't defend it, if I cast Teferi and you counter Teferi, you have to pray to God.
The blue-white Teferi?
That can't be your commander. So I mean the mono blue Teferi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Teferi Temporal Archmage.
Temporal Archmage, yeah. And so if I cast this and you don't let me untap 4 permanents before putting a win attempt on the stack, unless I have a way to make infinite mana already on the board, like Adric or the new Gigo Go Mage or whatever, Lithoform Engine, stuff like that. But if I don't have sub any of those, I cast Teferi, I need to untap my mana, and you counter my Teferi, you better hope and pray to God you have another counter spell in your hand to stop the next player from winning the game. Because the way to interact isn't when I'm going to untap a bunch of my stuff. The way to interact is after I've untapped and then go to put the win attempt on the stack. Yes, me having mana is scary, but you really have to be careful shutting someone completely out of the game, because if you lose, then you're interacting in places where like you shouldn't be interacting. And you also need to be communicating with the table more often. Hey, I have something in my hand. I can stop this Seedborn Muse. I need to know what you're going to be doing, because I know this other player can potentially do X thing, but I don't want you getting the value of a Seedborn Muse if these players aren't going to end up winning the game. And that's when, you can reveal information or do whatever, but it's people are too hasty to interact rather than like speaking.
I fully agree. Like, if you just take a moment when you're in those situations to assess the board, because what I've noticed a lot from playing between Najila and Sisay because I played them both probably like heavily for about a month and a half to see what the difference is on why I'm winning more with Sisay than I am with Najila. And the conclusion that I came to, especially with talking with people, is that they're very, very focused on the board and not the unknown. So they'll pay attention more to what they're looking at on the board with face-up cards rather than the backs. So like with Najila, like I could put something on the battlefield. For example, let's go with the Windcrag Siege. That basically just doubles my attacking triggers. You know, in a meta where you have to get Najila out very quick because everybody plays to the board so much with mana dorks or just other grind engines that are on creatures like sometimes Polywog Prodigy or other things like that. You have to get additional warriors so you can actually win the game. Because if you need to get through with the Revi, or you actually need to connect with other people with, I don't know, I'm forgetting the 4-drop black creature. Whenever you hit a player, you get 2 treasures. I don't know why I'm forgetting that name off the top of my head.
Grim Hireling.
Yes, Grim Hireling. Thank you. That you just need enough to get through. So I'll have that on the board, and people are like, "Well, you have a lot of warriors in the battlefield. That's going to do a lot of damage to me." And I'm like, "That would be correct if I was solely swinging at you. If you were the problem. But if you pay attention, it's just like I either have like 2 to 4 cards in my hand, and we're staring at somebody who has a full grip, their commander out, which could potentially be like combo piece or like a heavy grind engine. It's just like they have no idea what they're going to do on their turn. It's like just take a moment. It's like what I have on board may kill the table in 7 turns if there's nobody blocking. That could absolutely happen, and I will not deny that. But that is very unlikely to happen. So if somebody like blows a Besage on like my Windcrag Siege, it just blows my mind. I'm like, this could be used on an Underworld Breach, a Cradle, like a Rhystic Study if you have an infinite cast combo or just anything like that. It's just like if you're not thinking ahead to the next turn cycle or 2 into what could come down and what resources you have, especially if you're the person who's not ahead, you don't have the luxury to just start blowing resources to keep everybody behind to get closer to your own win, because then somebody else is going to win. And when I play Sisay, it just, because it's not on the battlefield, it's in my deck, people just goes right over their head. I'm just like, okay, sure. Yeah, you can absolutely counter that. Thank you for stopping them from winning. I appreciate it. And if your turn, I'm going to go ahead and get my big mana piece, go to my turn, and then win. Thank you. And it's just, it's really shown me a lot that people are just don't pay attention to what's going to be in somebody's hands or potentially coming out of their deck, whether that be a green tutor, you know, or face up with even with Sisay on the battlefield. Everybody knows it can tutor. They're just so focused on everything else that's on the battlefield. And
I think that some of that kind of comes from, no offense to anybody that you normally play against, but I think that the higher tier players that you play against, like the more competitive the environment is, the less you're going to run into that, because Sisay is a mainstream deck. It's been very good for a very long time. Everybody knows, hey, this thing is pod on a stick. It's either Earthing Pod-esque or Planeswalker combo. I could understand, like, not knowing which variant they're on, but if Sisay is even, like, a 4/4, and you don't recognize that, hey, they're about to untap, they have 5 mana open, that's 2 activations, what are you doing on your turn before I save us?
Mhm.
Because otherwise, you're just, like you said, you're just saving the table to lose, like, for what?
Well, this topic isn't so much meant for the top tables. It's more so for the regular play experience and what you're going to see most of in tournaments. Because most of your games are just innately going to not be at the top tables. That's just naturally how tournaments work.
Yeah.
And so if you're in these situations more often, it's at least important to understand and digest this information as to what's going on,
Right.
because you can't play with 100% good people in every game everywhere. That's just
Right.
that's just
It's
impossible.
it's a balancing act for sure.
Oh yeah.
So my question for you then, Kay, for the average meta deck, like Blue Farm, or Magda or a Tivit player, How can they stop Sisay besides just removing Sisay?
I mean, playing cards that innately don't affect them. Tivit more so than Magda would be like a Curse Totem effect. They also have access to one of the cards I think we collectively agree on is very, very good right now, which is Drawn on Linvala, which is basically just, I don't know why they printed it, but a strict upgrade to the old Linvala Keeper of Silence. I love that card for many years, but you get to turn off their abilities and you get them, which I find to be absolutely insane. Plus, it's on a flying body that doesn't die to
And it has
bolt.
vigilance. Like,
It's so good. Like that card, that card was that's got all the meat and potatoes in it. I don't know why at 4 mana. But for Magda, I mean, at that point you're really trying to play a heavy tempo game, and like I've been in that matchup because I really enjoy Magda, and my Magda list is more turbo than others, and I've seen Magda lists like go up to like 30 lands or more playing like a heavy mid range plan, which I really don't like. I'm on like 26 lands, and I'm very aggressive. I'm aiming to get to 5 treasures, not 10, and so what I do, at least in those situations, is that I play just slower than the CSA player. So they eat the interaction and then I go for the win and there's not enough for me. That's how I play that matchup.
Yeah.
But definitely when you're like in the Esper color pie and stuff like that, you should be looking at like Drawn on Linvala, Curse Totem, even like Damping Sphere can help for like just the regular meta right now with all the Simic stuff, turning off Cradle, preventing multiple spells from being cast if they're trying to storm off or things like that, which we did touch on our last podcast. But I mean, you can also tweak your deck. I've seen a lot of people just play the same cards that they have been playing for like the last year and a half, and I'm just like, the meta changes. You got to start changing some cards in your own list. Like,
there's actually a card from Final Fantasy that just came out that's actually really good at stopping Sisay activations. I'm gonna mispronounce this. I'm sure you guys can harass me about it in the comments. It's Luiso's Sacrifice.
Louis Wong.
Yeah, whatever he said.
Louis sucks.
But it's 1 mana, or you pay an additional 2 colorless if you don't sacrifice a legendary creature to cast it, but it counters target activated ability, triggered ability, or non-creature spell. So like your Rograk decks, deck that I'm gonna get into a little bit later in Silas Yoshimaru, it's really good in there. Even Thrasios decks, if it comes down to it, like it's a 1 mana counter spell. It's not Spell Pierce, where if they have excess mana, like everybody seems to right now, they just pay it, or Offer, where you're giving them treasure tokens. Like, it's just a 1 mana hard counterspell in certain decks, and it's very good at that.
What else do you guys have to say on this? Because I know resource management is a big thing that I touched on. Is there anything else that you guys want to add to it? I mean, namely Kerns and River, since you guys seem to be quiet for a little while.
No. I think you hit the nail.
Okay.
I mean, that makes sense from our resident Seat 4 warrior, so.
Yeah, I am. For those of you that don't know, in the Tourney Timmys server, I've changed my name a while ago to the Seat 4 Warrior. I had a staggering 11 games in a row where I was in 4th seat and I wanted to scream. And so, but I won a decent chunk of those games, so I just dug myself the Seat 4 Warrior. I just got used to playing in Seat 4. It's a different mentality that you just have to digest, but it's a funny thing to look at. We're going to collectively be talking about one meta deck that we think is currently good for tournament play and what decks are currently being played. And one of which 3 of us are playing quite a lot, namely not me. I'm just not a big fan of it, but we're going to be talking about Tevesh Thrasios as a meta deck right now that has a lot of options to it. It's in the strong colors and can do a lot of what's going on while playing a more resilient deck compared to rest. And I think River, you've been playing it probably the most. That is what your deck has been. I think you mentioned on the last podcast as well that you switched off of Tassiger to this. Is there any major thing that you want to say about this first?
100%. I will say R.I.P. Get the fuck off me. R.I.P.
Whoa! Our revenue! Our 10 viewers!
Oh, shucks. R.I.P. Toxtrol is like my big takeaway. Not having access to Toxtrol pretty consistently. I can feel it. However, I was at a buddy's house playing with a bunch of them. Some friends I used to play CDH with way back in the day, and they're getting, back into CDH a lot more. And I had like 4 games in a row where it was like, well, I have a tutor in one piece of my combo. Devoted Druid, my other thing on the next turn, win the game. It was really insane. I will say the deck being in Sultai allows you to push for early wins if you want to, but it's so good at just like, here's an early Tavesh, and my list specifically isn't tailored how most tourney lists are, because a lot of people are hard indexing into like the Candelabra effects and Deserted Temple, Minamo, because they're trying to turbo out Cradle and do all the Cradle shenanigans. And although I think Cradle's great, I don't feel like Tavesh Thras is the best positioned for it. You can build it that way. It's not like you can't. I play a slower playstyle than most people regardless. I'm a control player at heart, so I'm going to always, I don't want to say kneecap, but fairly kneecap myself to where I have to play slower. But the deck presents a lot of mana early. I've yet to run into any problems. I've yet to have a single game where I felt like I couldn't win. And almost every game I've played with the deck, I'm getting close to winning or winning. I don't know. It just feels great. The big thing with the deck is there's a few things I've been testing out. You just get access to like all the good tutors, not just because you're in black, but you get like Chord of Calling and Nature's Rhythm, which other decks get, but you get to like kind of abuse more because you're the Simic shell, but you're only using the best black cards. So like basically the tutors and Oppo Agent and Bowmaster. And then you also like something I think Rog Thras kind of struggles with, or Yoshi Thrash kind of struggles with, is an alternate win con that isn't either breach oriented or fairy mastermind oriented, because I hate the fairy mastermind stuff. One thing I've slowly built my deck to do is I've recently added in Snap Ewit, because I think having another 2-card combo with your Cradle is like just really good to make infinite mana. And then with a card like This Town Ain't Big Enough and Ewit, once you make infinite mana, if your opponents haven't responded, even if they stop your Oracle, which isn't happening if you've made infinite mana, because we're running like trick bind effects and stuff. Like, it's really difficult to interact with it anyways. Let's say it gets exiled or something. As long as you have access to Bowmaster, This Town Ain't Big Enough allows you to just constantly bounce your Bowmaster and your Ewit, returning both to your hand, and you just can kill the table that way, because you get flash speed stuff too. Like, if somebody has One Ring protection, you just do it again on their turn, like on their upkeep, and kill them regardless. Like, you bounce all their permanents and then GG. Like what are you doing? I've had a lot of fun with the deck. I think it's starting to pick up more play, but it's obviously less explosive than Rog or Yoshi. But I think it's more geared to the mid to late game strategy, where sitting on Thrasios activations in this deck just feels so good. Because again, you're in black, so like an Imperial Seal is another piece of your combo. A Vampiric Tutor is another piece of your combo. Your Tainted Pact isn't just for your Oracle. It's actually like a really good value piece, because as long as you can make infinite mana, you don't need like to Tainted Pact Oracle. I don't run Demonic Consultation because the card sucks, and you don't need to run Demonic Consultation. The deck's just really good. I'm sure, Mark and Kearns have different views on the deck. I know Mark's been playing similar to my list, and Kearns, I think, plays a different list than what I play.
I have played your list, River, and it's definitely more reactive, as in like, hey, let other people try to make mistakes or like try to let people try to win first and just put that one interaction at that right time to do it. And other times it's definitely like, oh, hey, this hand, you're right. I could play reactionary, but I'm going to go full tilt, go for the first win, which is I'm going to win at any time with my win at any time. I'm going to let somebody else win first. Then boom, here we go. Everybody played their interaction. Here I go. Like as soon as that stack is cleared of the first person winning, you go for it, or you win, like you attempt to win on top. So it's fun. It's so good when you just +2 Tavesh, get 2 thralls, and then with your Thrasios out, you usually have, that's an automatic like 3 mana from Gaia's Cradle, which is still, I think you should still, put it out as soon as possible. But it's a lot of fun where the game plan feels so much smoother when you're in 3 colors, right?
Mhm.
And I think one of the issues is that Underworld Breach Brainstorm and LED is a very, very good win con. It's still 3 cards where you don't play Underworld Breach until you have one of the other, unless you have Brain Freeze in hand, more or less. Or you attempt to tutor it through play Underworld Breach, gamble for the Brain Freeze and other janky stuff like that. And so that's one of the issues, is that you can play LED, but it doesn't really do nothing in most decks, right? Because most of the time you're holding up 1 or 2 cards in hand for that interaction. So you can't just crack it a lot of the times. And it's just very... It is really fun. As somebody who has played the different Thrasios decks, Rog Thras, and Yoshi Thras, which is something it feels like a better and worse Derevi at the same time, where it's like, hey, I love doing the Thrasios thing, but really, I'm just waiting for a Derevi. Why am I just playing Derevi at this point? Or try Rock Thras or Tevish Thras instead. All are fun. Thrasios is fun. I like making decisions. I like having 4 mana open, then at the last second, oh, do I want this card? Nope. Yep. Oh, it's a land. Oh no, I get more mana on my next turn. How do you River, do you play cost reducers as in training grounds in your Tevish?
Yes, I run both. I run Training Grounds and Biomancer's Familiar because it makes your Oboro Breeze Caller line way better. Actually,
Easier.
yeah, I had a game the other day where I activated Breeze Caller. I had just Biomancers out. No, I had Training Grounds out, and I hadn't found Biomancers yet. And I had a situation where, like, I activate Breeze Caller, Pyroblast goes at my Breeze Caller, and then I activate Breeze Caller again, returning another land, targeting my Cradle yet again, and then somebody baby riffs my Thrasios, I think, in response. And then I was able to, in response, other land, do the thing. And it got to a point where I ended up finding Biomancer's Familiar, and I was able to float a blue or 2 blues somewhere along the line of doing the stuff on top. And I almost pewtered out until I was able to play Biomancers, and then I had just enough green floating and 1 more mana for Finale X equals 2 for the Oboro Breeze Caller in my graveyard that I ended up finding. And then now everything costs 1 mana, and 1 mana activate, they were out of interaction. It just worked out in my favor. But yeah, I think running both cost reducers is, if there was another creature like Biomancer's Familiar that did it, I would run it over Training Grounds, because I'm actually not a fan of Training Grounds. normally. Like, it's really good with Thrasios in general, but I'm a bigger fan of just having creatures for Cradle. Like, I wish they would print another Biomancer's Familiar so I could cut my training grounds.
Nice. Beast, any remarks since you also play that deck?
Yeah, so the deck feels pretty good, honestly. First iteration, I just copied and pasted the list that River had came up with because I looked at it and was like, all of these cards seem like they're just, some of the strongest cards in these colors for this format right now. One of the biggest cards that I was missing was actually a land in Mistrise Village. Sometimes I would like catch myself with extra mana, but people have cards in hand, and I'm like, man, if I could make this Tainted Pact uncounterable, like they pretty much have to have one of two counter spells in their deck to really stop my Thoracle line. It just gives you more opportunities, and like we get Cradle so early that if you already have it in play, whether you drew it naturally or tutored for it already, having that option to expedition map or crop rotation for your Mistrise Village is just really, really strong in my opinion.
How are you liking Mistrise Village?
I haven't actually gotten to use it yet, but before it was in the deck, there was two different opportunities where if I would have had it, I 100% would have won that game. And that's what ultimately led me to add it to the deck. It has eluded me since then, but I've only played 3 games since putting it in the deck.
I like Mistrise Village. I'm always iffy on you can't counter this spell card when it came out because I was like, okay, because we have the Tats Beseiju land, I think. Beseiju shelters all, and we have the commander one, the Path of whatever, Cavern of Souls, is it?
Yeah, that's the typal one or whatever.
The typal commander one you use for your commander bait most of the time, or for a Thoracle wizards and cast it. And I was like, okay, I think this one is better because the floor is you get a blue mana. The ceiling is you have a protected win, which is the best type of win to have, right? It's the type of thing where you can have a spell on the stack, like it's really, really good. Especially with if you have a Seedborn out, Seedborn and the Valley Flood Color. One spell each turn they can't counter it if it's a non-creature spell, and it's really, really fun and really good.
It's definitely really good in the decks that it's good in, but I will caution against playing it in decks that aren't proficient in making a lot of extra mana. Like it's really good in like Malcolm Kedis or really just any Malcolm deck because they just have the potential to make so much mana. If
Do not put it in a 4 or 5 color deck, please.
Whoa.
Don't.
I put it in my blue farm once and it didn't work.
Okay,
yeah,
blue
it's
farm is always the exception. Don't put anything in blue farm and it's good. That's the point of blue farm. Oh, hey.
It's also so good in TNT.
A blue farm sideboard is 100 cards that you could just switch out and be like, oh, mine plays Path. Both the one white Path of Exile and the other one white exile creature plays both. This is broken.
Yeah. I think it's funny that you brought up Mistrise Village in the comparison of Beseiju Who Shelters All, because there's a bit of EDH history. Beseiju Who Shelters All was actually played at one point to get uncounterability outside of having Grand Abolish. Yes, it was namely meant to either make your counterspell uncounterable, one to stop flash, or what people were doing it most commonly with was ad nause to make it uncounterable. Because at the time, like there were a lot of cards didn't exist or weren't played at all. Like for example, some cards that are being played now are unsub, or I'm forgetting the white one currently. That's 2 mana.
Remand.
Yeah. Well, no, Remand's the blue
Oh,
one.
Reprieve. Sorry.
Yeah, Reprieve. Thank you. Yeah, those cards are played now. They weren't played at that time at all, and so it was a card that saw play for a decent chunk of time, but people took it out because it was fairly problematic. Because like the only time you ever had that benefit was making your counterspells uncounterable. So the big note that even though Mistrise Village doesn't make the mana to help you cast the spell if you're looking for the uncounterability, being able to make a creature uncounterable is massive, especially with all the new versions of silence effects and the new tech that has been brought into CDH, namely being like Voice of Victory and such. Like it is um, much better in that regard. Like I thought of the comparison when Mistrise Village originally came out that it was probably going to have the same effect of a Seiju had, but the ability to make a creature uncounterable has been what has made it a mainstay basically. Like just being able to go, here's a Grand Abolisher, show me Mind Break Trap. Oh nope, okay, it's here, I win. Like that's a very strong interaction that you can have in your deck. Like it's a lot of people are talking down on it, but like I I have thought about it in numerous situations because like my main control deck being Shorikai, Mistride's Village is the scariest card I play against. Like 90% of the time, when like if nobody has it, like I'm generally fine. Even if they cast like uncounterable things, like I've still got my ways to get around it. But Mistride's Village, that makes me shit a prick. Like honestly.
I'm actually not high on Mistrise, and I don't know. I just don't like the play pattern. I don't like spending 2 mana for a thing. Like my thought process has always been, and yes, it's a land. Yes, it's you can't interact with it. You know, all the same shenanigan stuff. But I think there's a lot to be said about like I'm very strict with how I'm spending my resources, and because Mistrise to me has only been good if you're trying to present a win attempt and is absolutely dog shit past that. Because most of the time you actually need the mana from Mistrise Village to play the game, and you can't use it in a way to make something uncounterable. Blue is a very rough color to spend. Spending a blue mana to do anything is like really rough, especially for decks like a Thassa's Oracle decks, right? If you're playing Thassa's Oracle, yes, you can make 3 blue, but like I would rather not have to spend 3 blue mana to try and make something, or 1 blue mana and then 2 blue mana for Thassa's Oracle. I'd rather not spend that amount of mana. It's technically 4 mana because you have to pay into the Misrise. So if it's Misrise in another land, you're spending 2 lands, which is 2 mana for an ability. And I don't know. The card is obviously good. It's obviously going to see play, and people should absolutely play it. I've just not liked it. I think I haven't needed it. I would rather rely more on flash effects than Mistrise. Like for me, if I was to, like Mark saying, he put in Mistrise because it's a card that he felt like he needed in the deck. There's 2 land slots that you could take out, which is both of my Surveil lands, and then replace those with whatever. If I were to replace either of those Surveil lands, one of them is just going to be Emergent Zone because I value flash speed more than I value uncounterability, because I'd rather respond on top of the stack with spells having been cast than try and utilize like a crop rotation for a Mistrise Village effect that I might actually have to use on a counter spell to stop in a counter war. And then the other land is just Deserted Temple, where if I value Cradle that highly, I should just be doing more Cradle shenanigans than Mistrise Village shenanigans. But that's also like personal preference. Should I play Mistrise Village? Probably. Like I'm not going to sit here and be like, I shouldn't play Mistrise Village because card sucks. Like I'm just not high on the effect because of how I play specifically. I've never felt like I needed it. So
what's that land card that is blue green tap? your
Alchemist's
spells have-
Refuge.
what
It's
was it?
just not worth the colored
Alchemist's Refuge.
That one. You're
It's-
not
yeah,
high on that
yeah.
card either. Cost too
shit.
much.
No.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like 3 mana.
Yeah, it's 2 mana plus itself. Like, the only upside really is that it doesn't sacrifice itself. If you need that effect more than once, either somebody cracked a silence in response and you didn't have an answer to it, or you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, it's basically only good if you have a Seaboard Muse, and that's
Yes.
the only reason is because Prophet Crucifix isn't legal.
Yeah. I played it in a I think it was a different Tevis Thras deck about 3 months ago, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about this card. Then I was like, oh wait, here's my Seedborn Muse, and it won me. It just won me the game every turn.
Yeah,
I'm drawing, playing my spells. It's like having a turn on everybody's turn. It was
yeah.
just really
With
good.
that one interaction, it's very powerful, but
Yeah.
everywhere else is bad.
I agree.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you, it's very spicy and very fun. You should
It's right up there
probably
with
not play
K
it.
trying to. It's right up there with K trying to preach tempt with discovery because he played against some people that didn't know better.
Hey,
and they let him go get
listen.
4
I
like it's never gonna
played
happen again.
that card so many more times, and it never happened again. And I took it out of my deck.
Yeah, I think Alchemist's Refuge is definitely in a spot where I would like the only way I would like this effect is in a way that it would never get printed, and that's if you just tapped the land and it gave you that ability. And that's obviously way too powerful. Like that shouldn't be printed in the format in whatsoever. You should absolutely have to pay for it. Or if the one that you paid into it was generic, I would see myself liking it more, especially if it wasn't tied to a specific color. But again, the issue is like, if I wanted the uncounterable type of effect, chances are I would probably play, and this is like a hot take, I guess, but again, this is like my own personal preference. I'm not saying I'm correct, but like, I would almost rather play Beseiju over Mistrise Village, just because like I'm in a deck where like a land entering tapped doesn't really hurt me ever. That's why I've been on the Surveil lands. I just that way my fetch lands are way more impactful. And like I could play a Beseiju past the turn. It's making it back to my turn because I'm holding up mana. And then when I untap with it, or Beseiju, that's what I meant. Holding up Beseiju, I untap with Beseiju, and then like
Who shelters all specifically?
yeah, who shelters all. And then I have a lot more leeway to do more stuff because it's just on the land itself. And so if I spend 2 mana for a Tainted Pact, the Tainted Pact is uncounterable, and I'm still only spending 2 mana for the spell, whereas I'm technically spending 3 for Mistrise Village. I'm spending 4 mana, yeah, which is even worse in my opinion. Like, Mistrise
effectively 0 to make something uncounterable because it does what normally a land does.
And I get that. For me, it's just the fact that it taps for a blue mana, which like until you do need it, and you're not like, I know the deck doesn't really like use its life total really, but like by the time you're playing a One Ring, an Ancient Tomb, a Mana Confluence, a City of Brass, you're taking damage from Beseiju at that point. Like
I don't play 2 of those, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, just in general, they're just the ones that were like on the top of my head. That people
it matters incrementally for sure.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, and like the main reason that I even like wanted it was because games just in general seem to be going to time or closer to time so much more. Like I'm not racing to Mistrise Village for the effect, right? I'm thinking like mid to late game. It's just so nice to have it because it's like I might have 1, I might even have 2 counter spells in my hand. I have 3 opponents. I can't just protect this into oblivion. So I'm just going to use this extra mana to make sure that my non-creature spell can resolve.
Yeah. I am very, very high on Dovin's Veto. I'm sure you guys know. I'll even run in my 5-color decks. Like I love that card to death. I run it in my tequila deck. It's fantastic.
I think having uncounterability on a thing already is like where you want to be. but I've
Mhm.
never liked, except for again the Sage Who Shelters All. I've never liked anything that gives uncounterability. Like there was a list Mark and I looked at for Tev Thras, and they were running Savage Summoning, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The idea is good, but like it's 1 mana. It's again, I'm spending mana to do a thing that like I probably don't need to do, which puts me at 3 spells cast. It's like our 2 spells cast, which my next spell means Mindbreak Traps online, yada yada yada. Like there's cute things you can do with uncounterability. I think like Dovin's Veto is really good. Like it also just says can't be countered. And then like Supreme Verdict, we're all super high on Supreme Verdict. Again,
Yeah.
says can't be countered. Like I like the spells that I want to resolve is specifically in Tev Thras for myself is like Culling Ritual. I'm never paying 6 mana for Culling Ritual. That's not happening. Or again, Tainted Pact, right? I'm not spending 4 mana for my Tainted Pact. I'm not spending 3 mana for. Well, I don't run Consult, and I also don't want to spend 4 mana for like Breeze Caller. I don't want to spend 4 mana for Thrasios or for Thassa's Oracle. It's a card that like I have seen work wonders. And again, I think people should play it. I should probably play it. It's just when I think about it logistically in terms of how I manage my own resources, it's not something that like I'm personally comfortable with playing.
I
fair.
I like it like when I use it in Blue Farm. My favorite thing to do it with is Intuition or Gifts Ungiven, because you just end step it and then you get it again to go like, okay, here's a silence after I just made my Gifts Ungiven on your turn. Now it's my turn, and then I
Yeah.
just don't care. Like
You can also with the Thoracle line. I didn't mean to cut you off, Kay.
oh, you're good.
With the Thoracle lines, you can also go like instep Painted Pact with this Mistrise Village, and then just untap and do it again with Thoracle, and then like just have it for both spells, which is like kind of
Yeah, I
ridiculous.
guess. Yeah, it's very rare I see somebody go for a reverse Oracle. I usually
Do that
call it
shit
out more
so
often
much.
than it happens.
I do it so much, dude. I think I've won the majority of my games doing it. It's
I've done it
oh,
fairly
Dude,
recently on the
I don't think I've
server,
ever seen you
knowing
do
that
it
somebody had a
good.
Flusterstorm in their hand, and it was gas.
yeah, I've done it. I do it a lot in tournaments because it's like because so you can't do it with demonic consultation, obviously. Like
Yeah.
like Tainted Pact is where you have to do it, especially because you can like if there is something that needs answered. So like I had a game where somebody had a ranger captain on board and I needed them to crack the ranger captain because I knew that they didn't have interaction, but my other 2 opponents did have interaction. And I said, Tainted Pact, this is my only answer to the TNK players board. And the other 2 players were like, we're going to have to let this resolve. The TNK player cracks their ranger captain, doesn't have a response for Tainted Pact. I flip my library over. I play my Thassa's Oracle. Like, it's not necessarily a lie. It's my only answer to the TNK board is to win the game. Like, that's all I can do.
I support it.
But there's like certain small things like that. Usually if I can abuse somebody else's board state to justify my Tainted Pact, I will. Especially like end step, right? Like end step Tainted Pact. I always say, hey, you guys aren't gonna like this, but like Tainted Pact. This guy is probably gonna win, but if you want any chance of winning the game, if you have nothing, Tainted Pact has to resolve. And if you have nothing, it's true. You do have to let Tainted Pact resolve. And if you don't, like if you do have something and you use it on Tainted Pact, the next player wins anyway. So I just put people in those situations a lot. But
Yep, that's a specialty. I trust me. You put me there too many times. I'm too familiar.
dude, it's my favorite thing to do. I straight tell players like, hey, you can stop me if you want, but or you can stop this if you want, but this is what's gonna happen. And my favorite will
Yeah.
always be Toxtrol resolving against you.
I hate it so much. I just know it has to fucking happen.
Dude, now it's Culling Ritual. I just want to like flip the table.
Unfortunately, guys, we've taken up a little more time than we planned today. So our next podcast, we will be covering the off-meta decks that have been previously mentioned. that we were going to discuss today. Quick update from Top Flight Gaming. I have secured a lease for a physical store, and I'm supposed to be getting the keys within the next 2 weeks. I will have more updates for you on an actual opening date and the address and all of that, and several upcoming videos, and look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Let's go!